You are doing something you used to love, something that used to feel good without any effort at all, and you are waiting for the feeling to arrive, the enjoyment, the satisfaction, the simple pleasure of it, and it just doesn't come. You go through the motions, you do the thing, and at the end there is just nothing. Or you achieve something, something you work toward, something that should feel like a victory worth having. And for a moment, maybe a few seconds, there is something, and then it flattens immediately back to empty. Or you are surrounded by people who are clearly enjoying themselves, laughing, present, genuinely alive in the moment, and you are sitting right there among them, performing the right expressions, saying the right things, but feeling like you are watching it all through glass, present in body, somewhere completely else in everything else. And you cannot fully explain it to anyone, because from the outside, nothing appears to be wrong with your life. You have things, you have people, you have reasons to feel okay, and somehow none of it is landing anymore. If that experience is familiar to you, this video is not going to tell you to think more positively about it. Today we are talking about why nothing feels good anymore, and what is actually happening in the brain when it doesn't. Because this is not weakness, it is not ingratitude, it is not a character flaw dressed up as an emotional state. It is a neurological condition with a name and a cause and a direction that leads back toward feeling things again. Psychologists call it anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure or satisfaction from things that previously provided it. And it is one of the most commonly reported psychological experiences across every age group and every demographic. Yet almost no one talks about it directly, because it is hard to explain and even harder to justify to others. How do you tell someone that you feel nothing when your life looks fine from the outside? It sounds ungrateful, so most people carry it in silence, performing okayness for the world while feeling increasingly hollow inside. Let's start with what is actually happening in the brain when this state takes hold and refuses to let go. The experience of pleasure and reward in the brain runs primarily through the dopamine system. Dopamine is released when you do something enjoyable, achieve something meaningful, or connect with someone you love. It is what makes good things feel good, what makes effort feel worth it, what makes life feel like it has texture. But the dopamine system is not infinitely resilient. It can become dysregulated, depleted, desensitized over time. And when it does, the same activities that once reliably produced pleasure begin producing less and less of it. The music that moved you starts to sound like background noise. The food you loved starts to taste like nothing special. The people you care about feel slightly further away than they used to, even when they are standing right next to you. And the brain, receiving less reward from the things it used to enjoy, begins to disengage from them gradually. Why invest energy in something that no longer reliably delivers the return it once did, so it quietly stops trying? Now let's talk about what causes this dysregulation to develop, because it almost always has a specific origin. The most common cause is chronic stress that has been running unaddressed for a long period of time. Stress activates the brain's threat response system, which is useful in short bursts and genuinely damaging over time. When the threat response stays activated chronically, it redirects neurological resources away from the reward system. The brain essentially decides that survival is the current priority and pleasure is a luxury it cannot afford right now. And if that state continues long enough, the reward system begins to atrophy the way any unused system does. The pathways that once carried pleasure signals become less efficient, less sensitive, less responsive to input. And the person experiencing this notices the result without understanding the mechanism producing it. Things that should feel good don't, and they cannot understand why, and the not understanding makes it worse. The second major cause is something that the modern world has created at a scale never seen before in human history. Dopamine overstimulation, the constant and relentless flooding of the reward system with artificial stimulation, social media, infinite scroll, constant notifications, algorithmic content designed specifically to keep the brain activated. Every ping, every like, every new piece of content delivers a small hit of dopamine to the reward system. And the brain, which adapts to every environment it is placed in, begins recalibrating to this constant stimulation level. It raises the baseline. What once produced pleasure now barely registers. More is required to feel the same thing. Neuroscientists call this dopamine tolerance. The receptor sensitivity decreases in response to chronic overstimulation. And the consequence is that ordinary life, which was never designed to compete with algorithmic content, stops feeling like enough. A conversation with a friend cannot compete neurologically with an infinite feed engineered to hold your attention. A walk outside cannot compete with content that delivers novelty and stimulation at a rate nature never intended. A book cannot compete with something that recalibrates itself in real time to keep you engaged at maximum capacity. So ordinary life stops feeling good, not because it changed, but because the brain changed around it. And then people wonder why the things that used to be enough no longer feel like enough. This is exactly why. Let's talk about what this state does to a person beyond just the absence of pleasure, because it does more than that. It creates a strange and specific relationship with time. Days begin to feel identical. Weeks disappear without texture. When nothing stands out as particularly good or bad, the brain has less to anchor memories to. Time blurs and flattens. People in this state often report feeling like months passed without them being fully present for any of it. Like they were there but not quite there. Moving through their life without fully inhabiting any moment of it. It also creates a complicated relationship with motivation, because motivation runs on the anticipation of reward. If the brain no longer reliably produces reward in response to effort, the signal to begin effort stops arriving clearly. And what looks from the outside like laziness or lack of ambition is actually a reward system that has gone quiet. The person is not choosing not to care. They genuinely cannot access the feeling that makes caring feel possible. Now let's talk about something that most people in this state do that makes it significantly worse over time. They reach for the highest stimulation available to try to feel something, anything, just some evidence of being alive. More scrolling, more content, more stimulation of every kind, trying to force the reward system to respond. And the reward system responds by becoming even more tolerant, even more requiring of stimulation to produce anything. So the emptiness deepens, and the reaching for stimulation intensifies, and the cycle tightens around itself further. Let's talk about what actually works, because this is not a permanent state, and there is a direction out of it. The counterintuitive truth is that recovery from dopamine dysregulation begins with less stimulation, not more, not dramatically, not all at once, but a deliberate and sustained reduction in the artificial stimulation inputs. Shorter periods with the phone, longer periods with things that require presence but deliver no immediate reward. Walking, cooking, sitting with another person without a screen between you, reading something that requires patience. Activities that feel boring initially because the brain has been calibrated to expect so much more than they offer. But gradually, over days and weeks of reduced overstimulation, something begins to shift in the reward system. The tolerance decreases, the sensitivity slowly returns, smaller things begin producing signals that were previously silent. The coffee starts tasting like something again. The morning light starts registering as something worth noticing. A genuine laugh catches you off guard. A song reaches somewhere it hasn't reached in a long time. These moments are small, and they are important. They are the reward system, coming back online one signal at a time. The other thing that research consistently shows is that human connection is one of the most powerful resets available. Not performed connection, not scrolling through other people's lives, actual present imperfect human contact. The kind where nothing is being produced or documented or performed. Just two people existing in the same space together. Because you were not built for the amount of stimulation the modern world is delivering to you every single day. And the emptiness you feel is not evidence that something is permanently wrong with you. It is evidence that your brain is exhausted from trying to keep up with something it was never designed for. Subscribe if this finally explains something you have been feeling but could not name.